Sometimes life goes a little off course. That's why you need a podcast host that can go a little off topic. This is the podcast that will give you straight talk about everything life throws at you. Welcome to another episode of Off Topic with Tom Powell. And here he is. This is Tom Powell.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Yes, thank you. Your background is so much cooler than mine. I look like I'm kind of in perhaps a prison cell, but I swear it's my apartment.
Yeah, no, listen, background is totally fine. I took a long time to put all of this together.
Well,
this is a lot of Christmas and birthday presents had to happen in order for this thing to come together.
I love that. I see a guitar fan. Is that Bob Marley, Jimi Hendrix?
This guitar back here is actually it's an actual guitar. It's a D'Angelico semi-hollow body with a Grateful Dead paint job that was designed in conjunction with the band. They don't make them anymore, but they're not terribly hard to find. My wife actually bought me that guitar for Christmas in 2020. Quick story about it. We know the owner of the local music shop very well, and he sells guitars as well as repairs them, as well as teaches lessons. And this landed in his lap, and he called me in August or September of 2020 and said, "Hey, I got this guitar. I know you're a huge Deadhead. Do you want it before I put it out for the public to buy?" And I said, "Well, of course I do. I had an acoustic up here just to bring an element of music to my music tribute wall." And I said, "Of course I do, but it really belongs with somebody who actually knows how to play. I don't know how to play." And so I told him pass. And then he called my wife and said, "Before I put it out, are you sure he doesn't want it?" And she bought it behind my back.
That's amazing.
And after we opened up all of our presents on Christmas Day, which included some of these pictures, and I was literally in the process of cleaning up all of the stuff, the boxes and the wrapping paper. And she said, "Oh, by the way, here." And she goes, "Now you can't take it back, so shut up."
He got you. They both got you. That's awesome. Love that.
They did. And I love the guitar, and I'm going to be buried with it.
Very nice. Well, you know what? If that's what you want, that's awesome.
What I want to do is I want to talk to you because I have been following your stuff for a minute.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I love your content. I follow you on TikTok, and I love your content. I find it to be very, very interesting. And I actually do two podcasts. I do one where I talk about all the politics. Mm-hmm. And then I started this one so that I can interview people that I find interesting.
Well,
and I've had an opportunity. Say again?
I said, I'm very flattered. Thank you.
Oh, no, I've been waiting to talk to you for quite some time because I started following you when you were in the little Alaska town.
Okay, good. So you've been around since almost the very beginning, really.
And I was watching you take your morning walks to class, and I was like, wow. So when I was able to start this, you were on the list of people that I wanted to talk to. I've had an opportunity to talk to some really interesting people, including I have been able to talk to on this podcast and make friends with and go down and visit a NASA flight director.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was an astronaut who spent 6 months on the International Space Station. And he reached out to me one day and he goes, "Hey, my name is CJ Creamer. And I'm a flight director at NASA. And I just got to tell you, I love what you do. And I wanted to send you some stuff." And he sent me a signed picture of himself in his astronaut suit. And a few of his mission patches from when he went up into space. And he said, "If you have a chance, come on down." And my wife and I got a behind the scenes tour of the Kennedy Space Center down there. And we got to have lunch with the director and the head of their marketing and him. It was a phenomenal tour. And what was really cool is that you have the regular tour. Then you have the tour where you can pay and you can go see like the actual mission control as well as the old mission control from the 60s they sealed off at the end of the 60s, and it's exactly how it was since then. And then you can pay to take the extra tour, which is you get to walk on this enclosed catwalk above this giant warehouse looking space where they have an actual life-size International Space Station in there, where they train the astronauts from here in those, but we got to go down and into them.
That is amazing. Did you get to do any of the training stuff?
They wouldn't let you do any of the training stuff, but they did let you get in all the modules, and we got to do. It was totally behind the scenes, very, very cool. But I digress.
That is cool. Well, no, that actually reminds me of, now I'm sure I assume you probably saw what happened with Wishmas last year, with my school, where I made the video that kind of went viral about the kids' Christmas wish list. And the NASA thing, I heard from two different people, but one was a NASA, I can't remember what position he had. He wasn't an astronaut per se, but he worked at NASA, because one of our students, they wished for an academic book about NASA being an engineer and all that stuff. And so it's very cool because I was able to connect somebody from NASA to that student who dreams of one day working for NASA. And it was all thanks to TikTok. So it's amazing what this platform has done for us.
It is. I've been able to meet an incredible group of people on here, and I'm sometimes floored by some of the people who I would consider to be famous that follow you. Follow me, whoever. You're scrolling through your following list, and you're like, wait, it's Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell follows me. I was like, oh my goodness, Rosie O'Donnell follows me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then it was like Margaret Cho. And then I saw Margaret Cho follows me. I'm like, I love Margaret Cho. Wow. And then like the I don't know if you follow techno at all, but Moby, the artist Moby.
Yes.
Yeah, so he follows me. And I was like, holy crap, that's weird.
That's awesome. I haven't looked through my following list yet, but I would be so excited if any of those, because I follow Rosie O'Donnell. I don't follow Moby. But Margaret Cho, I didn't know she had a TikTok, although I remember her from back in the day. I used to love watching her comedy specials. So
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, she's great. So I have questions about you, and some of them are going to be stupid and some of them are going to be serious. And I want to learn more about you, and I want the people who listen to my podcast learn more about you. But before we get into any of the serious stuff, I got to know, how many Bang energy drinks do you drink in a day? Because Lord, you love your Bang.
I am a true blue devout Bang fan. And what's funny is I drank my first Bang on the trip when I was moving to Alaska. I was at a hotel in Anchorage, about to go fly to my village for the first time. And I needed something and to, give me some energy, because I had meetings all day in Anchorage. And so I stopped and I got that, and it was the birthday cake flavor. I remember I did a video in my hotel room, because I was like, this literally tastes like a birthday cake. It tastes like the vanilla cake. It tastes like the icing. It tastes like how do they put this in a can? And it was just amazing. And yes, it is an energy drink. I only drink one a day. And I will say, a lot of times I don't even finish the one, because they're pretty intense. I think they're equivalent to like 3 cups of coffee. So I have to be careful.
Gotcha. I used to do a lot of Mountain Dew back in the day, but I don't know that I could handle it anymore. So God bless you for taking it. I know Bang loves you too.
What they do, they've been so kind. They've seen some of my videos. That is one little famous group that follows me. So they do follow me. I actually just received some more Bang in the mail, cotton candy flavor. They sent it to my school for me, because they said, we want to hook up our favorite teachers. So it was awesome.
Nice. So you're originally from, or you're not originally from, but the place you call home is Vegas, right?
No, the place I would probably call home right now is Arizona, Mesa, Arizona. So I taught for 12 years in Arizona before I decided to branch out and start kind of traveling and teaching. So Arizona is where I raised my kids, all 3 of my kids. And when they all graduated high school, my last one graduated in 2019. And I said, I think it's time for me to change. Like, I'm going to leave the nest. My kids are about ready to leave the nest. And I had been teaching International Baccalaureate in Arizona, which is an international program. We encourage travel, that just the global perspective. And so all my kids were going to these cool places. I had students going to Dubai and to Paris and to Africa on service trips and on educational things. And so I kind of decided I'm ready to travel to some of the places that I've been encouraging my students to. And it originally, I put in my letter of resignation in when I left for spring break of 2020. And you know what happened spring break of 2020? I had been hired to go teach in Kuwait. I had taken a job in Kuwait. And over spring break is when everything happened with COVID. And I got an email because they were building the school in Kuwait. And they said, we have to halt construction. We're not going to have a school in August. You know, if you can wait, great, but otherwise we're not going to be able to guarantee you a job. And so I was kind of in limbo, and Alaska reached out to me. They had seen my resume on the international website that I used. And so that's how I ended up in Alaska. So yeah, I call Arizona home because I lived there for about 18 years. But I've lived kind of all over. Whenever somebody asks me where I'm from, I always kind of struggle with that because I bounced around. I was born in Southern California, well, in Barstow, but grew up in Southern California with my dad. And then my parents divorced when I was 3, so my mother moved to Arkansas. So I would spend a year in Arkansas, a year in California, a year in Arkansas. So I've always had that traveling gene, I guess. Maybe that's what got it in me. So I graduated high school in Arkansas, then joined the military, moved to Texas when I was stationed in Texas. Then my dad actually moved from California to Texas. So after the military, I moved to Texas to help my dad. I have 6 little sisters and brothers that he needed help with a babysitter because they were moving to a new place. So I moved there and then ended up having my kids there. I lived there for about 12 years. So I've kind of been all over, but right now I think Las Vegas is going to be home for the foreseeable future. I'm really happy with the district and my school. I'm at a new school this year, but it's amazing. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
I didn't know didn't know you were in the military. What branch were you in?
I was in the Army. Now, I can't say I was a long-term military. I'm a proud veteran of the Army. I was a Patriot missile crew member back when Patriot missiles were still a thing.
Yeah.
I did a tour over in Riyadh during what we call Desert Shield. If you're familiar, it was right after Desert Storm. So I missed the big excitement, but we were there just kind of to keep everything in check. Did a 6-month tour then, and then I ended up getting out about 6 months early on a medical leave or a medical discharge. I was having some issues, but yeah, I loved it. I'm a firm believer that military, I wish everybody could do like at least a 3-week basic training. I think if everybody experienced basic training and kind of got those skills and that discipline, it does wonders for you.
Yeah, that's I actually enlisted in the Navy, but okay. After going through MEPS twice, I was rejected both times, and they were like, so the first time it was I had too much body fat. So then I went back home and I worked and I got all the body fat off. But the second time I went back in, believe it or not, I was rejected because I had gotten too many tattoos since the first time. And I said, it's the Navy. Tattoos
right?
are
back then, I guess maybe it was different because right now it seems like everybody. My sister, I have a sister, one of my younger sisters did 8 years in the Navy. So love the Navy.
And so, yeah, when you said you were in the military, I'm like, well, that's definitely somebody that does move around a lot. I had a little bit of the travel bug in me. 92 to 95, I actually lived in a tent.
Oh, wow. And where?
So I, in 92, in early 92, as we were coming out of winter and going into spring in 92, I was actually working at a McDonald's in Berwyn, Illinois, just outside Chicago. And a carnival came to town, and one of the guys that worked in the McDonald's with me, I was very, very young at that time. He said, hey, the carnival pays $50 cash to locals to come help them set up the carnival. And so I went and I helped set up the carnival, and they paid me $50 cash. And the guy who owns the carnival said, hey, if you show up on Sunday night at this time, once we close, we give you another $50 to help us tear the ride down. So, okay, $50 is $50. So I went and I tore it down. And he asked if I wanted to meet him in the next town to help set up again. And when I did, he goes, you want a job. And so for the summer of 92, I worked for a carnival. And then in October of 92, a friend of mine said, hey, you can still travel like this, but you don't have to kill yourself with the physical labor. There's this band called the Grateful Dead. You could just kind of follow them around and explain to me what the life of Deadhead were. So from October of 92 until August of 95, when Jerry died, we just followed the Grateful Dead and we lived in a tent. And so from spring of 92 to August of 95, my wife cracks up because you get those notifications from the government about your Social Security, and it breaks down your earnings for all the years. And then 92, 93, 94, 95, blank, 0, 0, 0. It's like, how do you do that? I go, well, because I didn't have an address. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't exist. I mean, we didn't even have the connectivity of cell phones. So when we disappeared into the countryside, that was it. We were gone. Until we picked up a payphone and called a family member, nobody knew where we were. So that's one of the things that when I saw your account, I was like, I really like to travel. I like that off the wall stuff. And this woman is teaching in like a village in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. And what was that like?
That was life-changing. And it was amazing. So I never in a million years would have pictured myself in Alaska. I know it's a beautiful place, but I am not a cold weather gal. I always say I was born in the desert. It's in my blood. I just cannot do the cold. But I also love learning about different places and people. And so when I heard it was a remote village, a fly-in only village, it was an indigenous tribe that lived in the village. I just thought what a cool experience to be able to do that. And in Arizona, we had a large Native American population, but I had never really gotten to experience, indigenous Alaskan natives. So I was really excited about just learning. And the fact that you don't have to have a car. There's no roads. You don't have to, it's just, there's nothing. I didn't realize how nothing it was until I got there. But, you go to Anchorage, you get on a smaller jet to take you to Nome, which is the nearest kind of airport able to handle that. And then you have to get on what they call the puddle jumpers to go to the village. And you land on a dirt runway. It's just on the top of a hill in this village. It was 150 people, the whole population. We had a K through 12 school there. So the district, it was called Bering Strait District, covers all of the schools along the Bering Strait on that far west side. So it was amazing. It was a Yupik and a Nupiaq kind of blend of people, and they are a subsistence tribe. So in other words, you can't. There's no grocery stores. There's no gas stations. There's nothing. You can't do that. So they hunt and live off the land. And so they hunt moose, they hunt caribou, they hunt whale, and getting to eat all those foods and things that I'd never had in my life. Agukdek, which is like blueberries and kind of like a Crisco mixed together, which sounds really weird, but it's so good. It's like one of the best desserts. They would harpoon whales. They still use harpoons. They harpoon whales. And it's a huge deal when a village gets a whale. And it's the most beautiful thing because they bring it, they just kind of harpoon it. They tie it to their little boat and they come back to the beach or to the village and they just drag it onto the village, and the leaders of the tribe or whoever's there will come and help harvest it right there. And they just let everybody in the village know, come down to the beach. Everybody gets some, they share. One of our teachers was a native and he would fish. He doesn't eat fish. He doesn't even like fish, but he would fish every year and he would provide salmon. I think the first day I got there, before school even started, I was just getting settled into the district provides housing, little trailers. And he came to my door with a gift of salmon. And it was just the most beautiful thing. So learned a lot. It was amazing, but it was cold. We lived, like I said, right on this little inlet. If you look up Golovin on the map, it's this little tiny area. It's like an inlet on the Bering Sea.
I did when
And
when I first started watching you. I did. I looked at it. I Google
yes,
Earthed it. Yeah,
yes, it
and
is
the
right
first
there.
thought that ran
So go
ran
ahead.
through my mind was that's where the first people in North America actually walked across and came into North America. Like
Yep.
right, you're at the front door of the first people
Right.
coming in.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And they take that history very seriously. They're such a proud people. They're beautiful people. Um, and we are where I was like one of the things that's interesting is I've been teaching 12 years. I did student council. I sponsored clubs. We would travel, we would go to sporting events, travel all over the state, jump on a bus, do whatever. But here, like our basketball team, or volleyball and basketball were pretty much the only sports other than the native youth Olympics, because that's huge there. But anytime they have to travel to a visiting nearby village, they have to fly. So you literally have to gear up in all your winter gear and you fly. And we flew to, I believe it's called Little Diomede. There's Big Diomede and Little Diomede Islands, and I believe it was Little Diomede where we have a school, but it's the closest you can get to Russia. And so I think I did a video, you may have seen it, where the guy was showing me, you're looking into the future. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard, because he said, that's Russia. You're looking into the future, because the timeline was, right there. So just things like that. It was amazing. And I miss the kids. Luckily, they still keep in touch with me. My students that I had freshmen, I was there 2 years. So my students, I had them freshman and sophomore year, and they graduated this past year. It was amazing. And I wanted to go to the graduation so bad. I just could not make it happen with the timing and the flights and me still being in school. But I'm hoping to get back there to visit soon, because I really do miss them a lot.
So I'm going to assume with such a small population that this isn't like, I don't want to be offensive when I say it. This isn't like normal teaching where you teach science. You teach a little bit more of a broad perspective because, correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, and we tried to always have the 4 content area teachers, but for example, it's hard to get teachers out in those, small schools in the rural villages. So, and like one of our math teacher, the first year I was there, was Frank, who was the native. He was just essentially a long-term sub, but he was brilliant with math. He knew math. So he was our math teacher, but he wasn't technically a certified math teacher, but he had just passed the test that he needed to take. But he also taught, electives or other things. I had to teach, my first year, I taught Alaskan history. And I was like, I don't know a single thing. And I remember I told the kids on the first day, I said, hey guys, we're going to learn Alaskan history. They gave me these books, but I have a feeling you probably can tell me more about Alaskan history than I can tell you. So yeah, you have to kind of broaden your horizons and teach, because I think we had a total of 8 teachers teaching K through 12, all the grades. Now, keep in mind, K through 12, when I was there, I had 28 students, 6 through 12, and then we had about 24 or 25 K through 6. So, about a 50 student school.
Now, I remember not only was there the joys of teaching in a unique environment like that, but there was also the pain in the ass part. Like I remember you had to like travel for two different planes to go see a dentist.
Yes, because everything is in Anchorage. So Nome does have a doctor, an emergency room, but for the most part, and what's more interesting, I think it's more interesting, and it speaks to what Alaska does for its citizens. So yes, I had to take 2 planes just to go to the dentist. When I took the praxis test, I'm sure you saw those videos, I would travel two planes to go take a test. And if there was a technical difficulty, it meant another 2 days of traveling. But what's really interesting, and what I really didn't talk about on videos, because I am also always cognizant and protective of the people I'm around, but we have a village medic, which usually is just a nurse. There's no doctor in the village, but the nurse can triage, and you do a lot of things. They're wonderful. but they have a dentist that flies around from village to village. So maybe once every 6 months, we'll get a notice to the school. Okay, the dentist is going to be here this week. He's going to, and you don't even need an appointment. He literally will just see everyone in the village, check everyone in the village. They have a veterinarian that comes because there are dogs there. People have dogs. A veterinarian comes every 8 months or so. So it's amazing how they make it work. They want to make sure their rural villages are taken care of. So I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but Alaska works hard to make sure. Yes, it's a little time consuming to travel. A lot of people do have, like when there's emergencies, that they'll fly in, but I mean, that can even take time. We had someone who almost froze to death. They had gotten ill and fell outside in the middle of winter, but it was late at night and nobody was out. And they found him the next morning, like early in the morning. Thankfully, somebody's dog was barking and woke them up, and they went outside and he was literally frozen. His hands were pretty much frozen. And they had to airlift him to the hospital, and he was able to survive because somebody found him. I think he might have lost a few fingers to frostbite, but things like that are a real hazard. And it's amazing how they can save people and still do what they need to do to make sure these villages get what they need.
One of the things that I thought would have driven me nuts the most is one of the things that you kind of touched on in a few videos here and there. And that is the inability to walk out your front door and get in your car and go for a drive.
Yes, I think I talked about that a lot. Every time
you missed your car. You missed your car.
I missed my car. I think every time I went home, I would do a video like at the Quick Trip. Like I was like, I'm at the Quick Trip. I'm at the Circle K. I'm at a gas station. It's amazing. As much as we hate traffic and we hate having to deal with car stuff, you miss it when you don't have it. You always miss what you don't have. And I missed roads. I missed people. You get there. And so, for a teacher, especially, one of the little rules of thumb for teachers is never live near the school that you teach at. So you don't, have to see so many people all the time that you teach. And there's not that option. I mean, you go outside your door and there's your students. But yeah, you can't go anywhere. So it can be a little claustrophobic. It can be a little frustrating to not just, you learn to appreciate the things that used to annoy you. I'll say that.
But oddly enough, what you gave up in what we consider to be civilized modern advances, you gained in the communal atmosphere of the village. You came down here and you got all the conveniences, but nobody gives a damn if you're fed.
Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
But up there, everybody cares that you're fed, you're taking care of you just don't have the roads and the cars. So it's like, which one's more advanced? The people who take care of one another, or the fact that we can go to the 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee anytime we want? The juxtaposition of the worlds is really amazing.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because the things that they value are so much different. But when you're there, you realize the things they value are kind of the most important. Like they're the most beautiful things that you can appreciate. And when we're in these big cities or even in rural areas down in the continuous states, we take that for granted. We take it for granted.
One more thing about the Alaska trip is
Yes.
the sheer, I would say, a combination of excitement and pride that the people seem to take as the Iditarod came near their village.
That is something I am so blessed to have to read about the Iditarod. To see videos is one thing, but when you see those dogs pulling these people across the ice and their little booties, these people will stand outside at 1:00 in the morning. If that's when they're coming through, there's a tracker. We can all track the Iditarod. It's online. Everybody can do that. But when you're in the village, I think I did some videos where it's 1 or 2 in the morning and I'm standing out there holding like a sandwich and some coffee that I try, because you want to offer them something. You want to have something to offer them. When and then not just the dogs, but I'm sure you saw the videos. I did a bikers. I never knew that. They bicycle.
And neither did I. I learned that from you.
Yeah. And the walkers, they walk.
Yeah.
1,200 miles. They just have walking sticks. So I got to meet some of those people. And the fact that people do that, but the villages, and they know they have their favorite villages that they come to, and they'll stay a little longer. But yeah, it is literally when we were in school and you probably saw, we had dogs coming through. Frank would come through and tell everybody in the school, oh, they're going to be here in 15 minutes. And we would stop what we were doing. Let's go out. Let's wave. Let's cheer them on, because that's amazing what they're doing. And especially if they're, native mushers, that was just something that they were so proud to see that. But they really get into that. It was amazing. I wish everybody could experience the Iditarod in person, because there is nothing like that feeling.
How did you wind up in Hawaii?
So
I mean, you want to talk about extremes. You go from the desert to Alaska to Hawaii.
I know. I feel like I'm just trying a little bit of everything. So this is what's funny, and it's interesting how it's all connected, and maybe subconsciously I knew it. In Alaska, all of the villagers that whenever they took vacation, they went to Hawaii. They love it. They could only stand it for a week. They would always come back saying, "Oh, it was so hot. It was so hot." But they would go to. So I heard a lot about it. People would come back and talk about it. And so when I was looking to see where I was going to go next, I was looking at a lot of different options. But it was kind of for that reason. I thought, how cool would it be to have such a polar opposite? I just want to experience as much culture and as much different lifestyles and places as I can. So that's kind of what took me to Hawaii, because so many people there talked about it. And, I got lucky enough I got to go to a school on Kauai, which is probably the most nature preserve of all the islands. Like 75% is untouched, and it's beautiful. So yeah, I ended up in Hawaii because I thought, why not? I've been 2 years in the cold. How about some tropics?
So you went from a place where you couldn't go to a convenience store and get a candy bar to a place where you can go to a convenience store, but you're going to pay the most money you're going to pay for anywhere in the United States. How was it like? I thought about the cost of living for you. How was that?
Yeah, so obviously in Alaska, the cost of living was low comparatively. I had to pay rent, but they took it out of my paycheck, so I never thought about it. It was the district provided the housing, and they took the money for the housing out of, and it was at a reduced cost. The big thing was food. There was nothing to spend money on, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I did a couple of videos on the food. A pineapple was $15 when we got them in. A 12-pack of soda was $20. Just things like that. It was very expensive. So I joked when I got to Hawaii and everybody said, "Oh, it's so expensive here." I said, I just moved from Alaska. Your prices in the grocery store are not going to scare me. So I think because of that, it helped me. It's definitely more expensive on the island for sure, but the groceries were not as bad as Alaska. I will say that. It was comparable, if not a little better. So that was nice. The cost of living in Hawaii is outrageous. And I will say, I learned a lot. There's a lot of Native Hawaiians that say, stop coming here, and I had to respect that. We had an entire training on respecting the land we're on and the culture we're in our school. And I was so grateful for that, because here's something interesting that I never thought of. And I don't know if I ever mentioned this in a video. I think I might have. But one of the Native Hawaiians at our training said, it's almost like the microaggressions that you hear about here. But they said, when people say, I live on the mainland, well, why is your land the mainland? My land's the mainland. So they would say even that little thing of just saying, oh, you're on an island. I live on the mainland. They said, they don't like that negative connotation. So I had to learn a lot. But the housing situation there is horrible. And it's not good on any of the islands, but Kauai especially. Um, I was paying 1,500 a month for a little room and a bathroom that somebody had built onto their house. My landlords were wonderful, but I mean, we could hear each other. There was one wall. It was like I was in their garage, but and that was, no privacy. I didn't really have a yard. I mean, I felt kind of confined. Very grateful to have it, because a lot of teachers, that's why they can't get teachers there, because the housing is so astronomical. It's almost impossible to own anything there unless you're a millionaire. They can't even find doctors or keep doctors on Kauai. Doctors who are supposed to make a lot of money, but they can't afford the housing on the islands. So, it's bittersweet, and it's kind of I can't think of the term now, the cliche, but it's very unfortunate, because a lot of the reasons that people resent people moving to the island or coming to the island is because of the very reasons that people complain when they're on the island, if you know what I mean. Oh, everything's
Yes.
so expensive here. Well, it wouldn't be so expensive if, everybody didn't come here and take. And, so
Yeah,
the cost of living was definitely a major contributing factor in why I couldn't stay more than a year. It just wasn't feasible. And I would love to go back. I still hear from some of my students there, and I still hear from my landlord even that says, I wish you were still here. You were a great tenant. But wasn't feasible to stay.
Okay, you landlord. Let's talk about that for a second. What happens to would you have a house or an apartment back in the mainland when you're in Hawaii or Alaska?
Yes. So like I said, I kind of left the nest before my kids did. So all my kids graduated. I raised them all in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, in a rental. So we're in a rental property. So my boys moved. My two boys are now roommates in North Carolina. But when I moved originally to Alaska, I had my youngest son and my daughter were kind of roommates in our house. And because I left before them and it wasn't their choice, I made a deal with them just as a mother and said, I will pay the rent because I'm paying less in Alaska. I'm making more money there. And I want to do this. This is something I want to do. So I will cover the rent while I'm gone. So I did that. And then it got to the point where they were getting old enough to get out on their own. So I have kept the house in Arizona up until this point, but I've given my daughter a deadline to move out. I said, well, either move out or start paying rent, because I feel like I've paid the rent for 4 years now, and she's going to be 25, and it's time to, start doing your thing. You got to get out there. So she actually wants to move across the country as well. She's hoping for South Carolina. She's taking after me and wants to just go somewhere new that she doesn't know anybody and just start a new life. And I'm equal parts terrified and proud because it's daunting. So, but yeah, so as of November is the plan. I will no longer have a home in Arizona, and Las Vegas will be my only home and hopefully my only rental bill.
But are you planning on doing more remote teaching in the future?
I do want to. However, I think, and this speaks to the district here in Las Vegas, I am very, very excited about the district's offerings as far as retirement and 401k and all that stuff for the future. Mm-hmm. So instead of a 401k where you pay points or you pay in for points for a certain amount of years, they do something where if you're here for 4 years, 5 years, you're vested and you can actually pull retirement as of that. You don't have to be here the whole 20 years. Now, it won't be as much as if I was in 20 years, obviously. But I kind of like that idea because I did kind of dip into my retirement to do all these adventures, which I think is totally worth it. Don't regret it for a moment. But I have to, at some point, think about when I'm going to. So I'm hoping I can still travel and teach in a few years, but I think I'm going to stay here for a few years. But I do hope I get to travel more, period, and do more videos traveling and learning about new places. There's a
I
lot of
think that
summer. I'm sorry, go
I think
ahead.
that could definitely be a niche for you. I think the even without teaching in a remote location, I think the travel aspect combined with an educational aspect could be a winning content combination for you,
Yeah.
because you have that mixture that people have come to know you for, the education aspect and the travel aspect. And so if you could educate us on various places in the world that you visit, I think it could be something that could be a real winner for you. I know I would continue to watch it.
Well, thank you. That's what I'm hoping. And I'm actually looking into summer programs and for teaching abroad. So even if I stay here for the school years, just for at least a few years, I'm hoping I can travel and do different things education wise, even if it's volunteering. I'm really excited to just help people learn about new places. I think one of the things that we're missing in this world is, and it's because not everybody has the ability or, the means to travel as much as they probably would like to. But I know so many people that I feel like their view of the world is limited in their experience. And if I can provide some sort of experience for them to share with me and see it themselves, that's my dream. Like I I have friends, like I said, I graduated high school in Arkansas, very small town, Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's getting bigger, but I have so many friends from high school that have never left Hot Springs. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love them dearly, but I feel like your perspective changes so much when you expose yourself to other things. Maybe even things that you're not comfortable with. Maybe, I went on a zip line across this huge thing in Hawaii, and I'm not a big fan of heights. I'm not a big fan. I've always said I will never bungee jump, but it's like if you're willing to try new things and you actively seek out educating yourself, it's amazing how much that opens your mind. And I feel like there's a lot of close-minded people that
And
could benefit.
And I'm going to tell you flat out, I was one of those closed-minded people when I was younger. I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago and in southern Indiana. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, but spent my summers in southern Indiana, and then did my high school in southern Indiana. Now, I didn't do a lot of high school. I dropped out at the beginning of my sophomore year. I never even got out of high school, let alone went to college. And then I started to travel, and it wasn't until I got out and traveled that I realized how small my bubble was. And I thought I had done a lot of traveling. I went to 38 of the lower 50 states before I was legally old enough to have a drink. And
Which is amazing.
I had my thumb in the air, and everything I owned in a hiking backpack and a little 2-person tent that I slept in. And I just went around and I saw stuff. And then, after 20 years of being with my wife, and we sacrificed our vacations year after year to make sure that the kids had everything, we started to do international travel. And now I've had a chance to get to Mexico a few times, Honduras, Belize, the Bahamas, been down to Jamaica a few times. And what I find, what I talk about, and we're not going to get into what I talk about on TikTok, right, but what I find amazing is that I have people that interact with me and say, "Oh, those countries are shitholes. Have you ever been to them?" "No, I've never been out of my state." Okay, therein lies the problem.
Right.
You got to go look at. I thought the same thing about Jamaica until I landed and met the Jamaican people. And I'll tell you what, I could disappear into the countryside of Jamaica today and be totally at home and fine and at peace with myself. And the people that insult the other places, and we do it better, and we're so Star Spangled Banner better than everybody else, go visit them. My stepsister went to Evanston, Northwestern University in Evanston, and then after that, she went to Cambridge to study, and she fell in love with Cambridge, and she came back here, and she worked in Kansas City for a little while, and then eventually for Microsoft up in Seattle, and then her and her husband, they just pitched it all in, and they moved back to Cambridge. And she was writing software for Microsoft, but
Wow.
her husband's one of these guys that is, I think he's on his like 10th PhD. Like he just forever
Wow.
is going to college, right? And so he got an offer from Cambridge University where he could study. They're studying how to fight cancer with things that are already in the human body.
Oh, wow.
And so they moved to Cambridge, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to stop working." And she plays fiddle in a pub band in England now, and is just like living her best life.
Yeah, that's
You know,
amazing. That's
and
amazing.
I'm like, go live something. Like my daughter, something that I wanted to talk to you about before the end of all of this is my own daughter,
Uh-huh.
because she's just started her sophomore year, first class today of her sophomore year at UIC. She
Mhm.
is a bit of an adventurous soul. She's my little hippie.
Mhm.
She's got tapestries all over the wall, and very in tune with Mother Nature and the world and all of that. Never use plastic, always use reusables and all of that
Right.
good stuff. And she went into college. She went to a boarding school for high school, for
Okay.
STEM school, for kids that are going to go to school for math and
Cool,
science,
cool. Very
uh,
nice.
called IMSA, Illinois Math and Science Academy. And then she went to UIC with the intention of studying to be a pediatric neurosurgeon.
Ooh.
And when she got to school, the people that she met as friends and the teachers and faculty that she got to know, they started to explain to her, well, you really explain things really well. You should be a teacher. You explain things well. You should
Wow.
talk to educate other people. And she completely ditched neuroscience and is now she's doing human development so that she can wind up being a teacher. And
Oh,
she wants to start by teaching in the impoverished areas of the city of Chicago, and then from there potentially either get into administrative educational stuff or do some traveling. And I told her, I said, you're going to want to listen to this episode, because this is the woman that you want to
right,
watch some of her
right.
stuff of what it's like to do some traveling. Because I have another daughter who always wanted to, she's a CNA, and she always wanted to do the travel nursing.
Yes, that's supposed to be very good too.
Yeah, and so I think some of that hippie travel bug that I have wore off
I
on my
love
two
that.
daughters. And
I love that.
so if you were to talk to somebody like my daughter Lily, who just started her sophomore year, she's 19, she's going to be 20 in a month, and she wants to be an educator. What would your advice be to somebody like her?
First off, I would say talk communication. If somebody tells her she is a good communicator, the biggest part of teaching is being able to talk and have conversations, not talk to, not talk down to, talk with. And if she is inherently good at talking with people and relating to people, that is the paramount number one thing you can be as an educator. It's one of the things I always talk to my students about. If you can communicate, and if you can communicate well, um, you can do just about anything. So, first of all, she sounds like she's already on track. Secondly, as a teacher, never think of yourself as the one in the room, or yeah, the one in the room that's teaching. You are also learning, because I think students look at teachers as, oh, they think they know everything, or they're a teacher. Could they know much? They don't make much money. They certainly, I think building those relationships and being able to communicate effectively with students is really all you can ask for. There's all kinds of little things about teaching, but it really, the heart and soul of teaching is knowing that you're learning with the kids. You are there to help them learn, facilitate them learning, and then in turn, you're going to learn. I can tell you, and as far as the type of school she's interested in, I have taught in a lot of different schools. The last 2 years I've been in a Title I school. I think those Title I schools, those schools that service a community that might be socioeconomically challenged, or a diverse community with students with a diverse set of backgrounds, those are the places where you're going to learn the most, and where your students can get the most out of education if you approach it as we're in this together, right? We're doing this together. And I always tell my kids, nothing I teach you in English is the most important thing in this classroom. Nothing about English, nothing about math, nothing about Spanish, nothing about science is going to be the most important thing in this classroom, because everything you learn in this classroom is built on community, collaboration, and communication. And if you have those skills, if you are able to work in that effectively in that arena, you can go into anywhere. And it's the life skills and it's those skills that you learn within the classroom that have nothing to do with content that is the most valuable. I mean, literature, of course, I could talk forever about literature and how literature mirrors so much of what we experience. Literature is the human experience. But honestly, I would tell your daughter, continue to work on embracing how much she can learn by helping others, because the service to kids and the service to the community, it's the best part of teaching.
That is certainly, for lack of a better way of putting it, her jam. So like when she was in junior high and her early years of high school, she was always reading 3 or 4 books at a time. She could not consume enough. She taught herself in 6th and 7th grade. She taught herself sign language by checking books out of the library and watching YouTube videos. And when she got to high school, her freshman year of high school was the first year our local high school had a sign language class, and she was one of the first kids in that first class. And the teacher was like, "Who knows sign language?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so like, "Oh, you already know all of this." So she actually helped kind of teach the class a little bit. She kindergarten, preschool, graduation. They do a little graduation ceremony for preschool. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of the ceremony. Lily stops the teacher and says, "That's not the way you taught us how to do it in practice. This person's supposed to be here. This person's supposed." She's been doing that since day one. Right. And then she throws in the activism with it. She got to junior high. She played softball. Both my daughters played softball. She gets to 7th grade. She makes the softball team. They get their uniforms, and it's the boys' baseball hand-me-down uniforms. And she marches down to the principal's office and whips the door open with her uniform. And she goes, "So the boys are good enough for new uniforms, but the girls aren't?" And she raised such a stink that the school went and bought the girls new uniforms, because she's like, "This is
amazing. That's awesome."
And I always thought her bossiness and her lack of bedside manners would have really served her well in the medical world. But apparently, like the people that she's talking with is like, she really does, when it comes to other people like her age, other adults, she can not lose her patience, but not have as much patience. But when she's talking to kids, it is just like she's 100% zoned in. So hopefully this is the right path for her.
I love that for her.
She's on a path that she thinks is the most important one. And listen, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. I was never a book learner. I failed 7th grade completely, had to redo the whole thing. I barely made it out of 8th grade. I finished freshman year with 1.5 credits, and then I dropped out at the beginning of my sophomore. I was like, I'm not going to do this. I learned better by doing things. And so I just packed all my stuff up and hit the road. And my school, my classroom was the American countryside. If you've ever watched a movie, so you might know of a movie having ties with Alaska, Into the Wild.
Oh, of course. And the book. Yes.
Yes. So that mirrors my early 20s very closely. That was the kind of traveling I was doing.
But with a much happier ending, thankfully.
Yes. I'll be honest with you. It still amazes me at the age of 52 and looking back on it that I met my wife. I had a 26-year career. I was able to be, own a home, raise kids, own my own business, all because a single musician died. Otherwise, I would have never stopped traveling.
Yeah.
I would have never stopped traveling. Would have never met my wife. None of this happens. I'm sure a lot of people who don't like me on TikTok would have been happy with that not happening.
Oh. You know what? here's the deal. And I did want to say one thing, because I think there is value in your path. There is value in whether or not you got a high school diploma, you have learned the importance of education and found a way to educate yourself. Everybody's path to education is different. It's those people that think, oh, I got a high school diploma, I'm done, I'm not interested in college, I learned everything I need to learn. Or I got a college degree and I'm a brilliant scientist and I know everything I need to know. It's, it's the people that continue at 51, 52, 60, 65 that say, no, I've still got more to learn. I can still get better. I can do better. I can do more. So, my son, my youngest son, he did not graduate high school. He came to me his junior year, or right before his junior year, and said, I don't like school. Now, he had a 4.0 GPA, straight A's. He's brilliant. But he said, I just don't enjoy being in the classroom. I don't like being, most of the students aren't really my vibe. And I told him, I said, you know what? I tell you what, if you can take the GED and pass it on the first try, great. You've got the GED, you can move on and do what you got to do. And he went online, he found a test or a testing online thing. And within 2 weeks, he had set the appointment. He took the test online. He passed it the first time. He had his GED, never went back to high school. He's one of the most brilliant. He's right now, I'm sure you can audit Harvard courses. He found an online Harvard coding course. Now, he did pay a little bit because he wants to get the certification. You can audit, do the whole coursework, learn everything, and not get the certification. He's choosing to get the certification, but he's computer coding, and he calls me and tells me about stuff he's doing, and I'm like, la 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 la, I don't know. But so again, I think, and the journey that your daughter's on, the journey that here I thought I wanted to do this thing all my life, but now I'm hearing this is interesting, this is what I feel a calling to do. That's how all of us should live. So I commend her and tell her congratulations, and I'm excited, and I hope I hear how everything goes. And if she needs anything, my email, send her, have her email.
Absolutely. You're talking about how your kids come to you and they talk to you about what they're doing, and you're just lost. I got that way with Lily. It's at the age of it's 6th grade. Right. Mm-hmm. She became more advanced than me in 6th grade. And then as she progressed into the school that she went to, you have to go to your local high school for your freshman year, and you apply. And then if you get in, you go sophomore, junior, senior at this boarding school, and you live on campus, and you get yourself up and you feed yourself. And it really is a college prep school. And she gets into it, and unfortunately COVID. Her sophomore year, she did the entire sophomore year from her bedroom. So she never even made it to campus. She didn't get to campus until junior year. But, I'm talking to her about the stuff that she's learning when she was in high school. First of all, the language course she took in high school was Mandarin.
Oh, and that's huge now, because they say that's going to be the language. But yeah, it's big in high schools now.
Nothing I can help her with. I know how to speak Spanish. Because I worked with predominantly Mexican immigrants in my 26 years in landscaping, and they taught me a lot of Spanish. I know enough Spanish that when we went to Mexico, I was talking with everybody, and my daughter was like, "What?" And the guys in Mexico were like, "Oh, you're Mexican." I'm like, "No, I'm American, but I'm close enough, right?" So and then she's studying the properties of a black hole, and they're growing their own diseases, and I'm like, this is high school. Now that she's in college, I mean, forget about it. There's no way. So I'm definitely going to be talking to her about what you had to say and all of that stuff.
Well, thank you.
Is there if somebody came to you and said, I know this about my daughter, if somebody paid for her education, she would never stop going to college. She would get degree after degree after degree, and she'd live in some studio apartment. She'd live in some studio apartment and drive some rundown car and have a little hippie bag and be totally content with life. If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, listen, we're gonna take care of the expenses. Name the place on the planet that you want to teach. Where would you want to go?"
Anywhere in Europe. I think that would be my first choice. And I was this close this last year, because I was talking to, there's several programs that they're looking for educators in the UK. You know, as much as they try to say American education is falling apart, they're struggling for teachers all over the world. I'm not going to lie. But I am obsessed. I think if I wasn't teaching English, I'd be teaching history. I love the idea of history and seeing places that people walked thousands of years ago. People walked here thousands of years ago. I understand that. But, you know, just seeing that history that we're all so familiar with. I would love to go in many different places in Europe. I would love to go to Scotland. I would love to go. I think I would probably really like, I would love to go to Cornwall, England. I did my family history. I did my genealogy. I did my little DNA stuff. And I traced my family all the way back to Cornwall. So that's kind of where we're from. But I think Europe first. And then I would, you know, I interviewed for a job in West Africa. And I got the job offer, but they needed a 3-year commitment. And I was really hesitant to do that. A lot of the overseas jobs want at least a 2-year commitment. And that's another thing that kind of drives what I decide. I like the idea of a year by year thing. But yeah, I think Europe would be my first choice, anywhere in Europe, because I just think the history there and because it's such a condensed area, you could go to so many different countries and see so many different things. I think you could teach, you know, based in London and get on a train or a plane and get to multiple countries, you know, for long weekends or for, so I just think that would be an opportunity to see multiple places in one go. And then I would love to go to Dubai. I spent time in Riyadh. I've experienced Saudi Arabia, which is very different from Dubai. Dubai is much more westernized, but I like the idea of learning firsthand about as many places as I can. So it's a tough question. I'm sorry, that's not a very good answer.
No, it's not a tough. Europe is an excellent answer because, I mean, we as Americans, we always look back to Europe, you know, the old country, so to speak. And I see the same thing. Like when you look at my travel wish list, it's never go sit on a beach. My wife loves to go sit on a beach and relax. My travel wish list is I want to see all of the stuff. I want to see the Great Pyramids of Giza. I want to see the Eiffel Tower. I want to see the Great Wall of China. I want to see the Sydney Opera House. I want to see the Taj Mahal. I want to see Nepal. Yeah. You know, I want to see.
I would love to go. Oh, I'm sorry. Just real quick, when you said the pyramids. So when my oldest, since he can remember, I have told him, all you have to do is make enough money to take me to see the pyramids before I die. And he knows. And even when I talk about traveling, he has told me, he's like, you're not allowed to go without me. I'm taking you to see the pyramids. So yeah, I totally understand. I want to see everything. I've never been to Canada. I want to go to Canada. I mean, Alaska is very much the same kind of weather in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's not that I'm one of those people that says I want to see every country in the world. It's not that. I want to experience as much as I can and learn as much as I can from as many people as I can.
Have you, not to too sharply shift here, but have you been able to monetize your appearance on TikTok yet?
I do. I am part of the creator fund.
Okay.
But as far as and I've tried a couple, I'll be honest, you probably, seen a couple of videos, but I've tried to do the little commercial things, TikTok shop. I just can't, I'm not good at it. And so other than, I probably don't make, I've had months where I've gotten almost $600 or $700 if a video does really well. Most of my videos are not do as well as yours. I think I'm kind of a niche and I haven't grown. It's I kind of grew in Alaska and then that's where I reached. And luckily most of you have stayed with me and I appreciate you, but I think traveling, or I think those kinds of new experiences, and especially me, I'm very hard on the sleeve kind of person. So I can't fake it. And I think that when I do travel and when I see new things, I think that's what brings people in, because they're like, she's real. I don't know how to be fake. I can't do it. So unfortunately, I don't think I would say I've monetized much. And plus I still teach. That's my main thing. So
Yeah.
I don't have as much time as I would like to try to explore what I could do. But I'm grateful for the things that have happened. Like I mentioned, Wishmas, it kind of went national and even a little bit global last year. I didn't make any money off of that, but I was able to provide so many gifts to these kids. It was that kind of thing makes it all worth it to me. I would make videos every day if I knew that it could help somebody somewhere. I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but it really is truly what I believe in. I believe that your days should be filled with trying to make an impact in the world or on a life. One thing on my board, I always have that, change. What is it? What is it? I can't remember how I reworded it. Oh, change the world. But I always take the out and I say a. I say just change a world. Like, how cool would it be if every single one of us thought we could change someone's world? We could do one thing that could change one. And that's kind of what a teacher is. I hope I get thousands of chances. Am I going to impact every single student? Absolutely not. But man, I'm going to do whatever I can to impact change as many worlds as possible. I may not change the whole world, but if all of us changed a little piece of it, that could lead to something. So
personally,
that's my
I would love to see some type of organization be able to sponsor you so that you could be the teacher that teaches on all 7 continents.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Right?
I would do it in a second.
Here's where she taught remotely in North America, in Alaska. Here's where she taught remotely in South America, in the outback of Australia, in the mountains of Asia. You know what I'm saying? Just that would be something that could be a really cool niche that I think a lot of people would really get a kick out of, that would help you be able to do the traveling and reaching as many people as possible. And it's selfish because I like the content. And so I'm looking at it from a consumer content or aspect. I want to see.
I will take any tips or advice with all of your connections. If you know anybody, or if you can get the message out there, I'm on board. I will take that sponsorship and run with it, literally.
Absolutely. Listen, like I said, I love your content. I hope that you don't ever stop doing it. Please don't ever stop doing it, because I watch it all the time. And I cannot thank you enough for doing this. And I'm just aggravated that you don't have 1 million followers. I really am. I'm aggravated that you don't. I share your stuff all the time, and my wife got to know you as the Alaska teacher, because I'm like, hey, that teacher, she's like the one in Alaska. I'm like, yeah, and I'm like telling her about this one or that one or this, that, the other. So yeah. I'm going to spread the word as much as I can.
Someone as big as you even reached out. So thank you for following. It truly means a lot. I hope I can keep entertaining you. And hopefully I'll get to travel to some places soon that will give you more fun.
Well, if you find yourself traveling to Chicago, you let me know.
It's on my list. I have always said I've never been to Chicago. And whenever anybody asks me where I want to go still, I say Chicago in the fall, Chicago in the fall. I've never been on the East Coast, but I've never been to Chicago. And for some reason, I know why. It's John Hughes and it's John Cusack. I'm sorry, but I love those two guys. And isn't John Hughes from Chicago as well?
Yep. Oh yeah, The Breakfast Club. All of those movies are all Chicago-based. John Hughes, all of that stuff is here.
So that's my Gen X coming out. But
the last episode before you on this podcast was a woman who runs a Chicago movie tour, and they do a lot of John Huston movie sites.
Amazing. Yes. See, exactly. Tell her I want to be on her tour. Give me her number when I come to Chicago.
Will do. And see, and I, as somebody from the Chicagoland area, when people say, where do you like to go? The city that I have visited the most in the United States outside the city of Chicago, New Orleans.
Ooh, see, I've never been to New Orleans. It's
It
so
is
weird
such
because I love travel and I grew up in the South, but I never really went east of the Mississippi. I never.
right. It's such a cultural shock to the system. New Orleans is the food, the atmosphere, the music. Just it is so different. It is like you step into another country.
That's amazing. You know what? You're inspiring me. I think I need to get out more because I will admit this last year, well, it's been a big adjustment. It was a rough year last year in many ways, and I haven't done as much. So you're inspiring me to get out there and do what I love again. And who knows, maybe I can start chasing you up that follower count.
Well, thank you very much for doing this, and I will talk again. I'll give you my number.
Yes,
If you're ever around, shoot
yes,
me a text.
please keep in touch. And I can't wait to see what this turns out to be. I hope you share it with me.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.